Hi everyone, this is a remote viewing 5-year forecast for a new cryptocurrency that we are calling CICO-4. This particular currency addresses a very specific market that seems to have great potential for widespread use in the industrial world. Moreover, it currently has very little in the way of competition with respect to its specific application. There is one other currency, a bit newer, that is designed for a similar application, and we expect to do a CICO forecast for that currency as well in the future so we can compare the two coins. So CICO-4, which is the focus of the current forecast, is interesting as a concept, and it has minimal competition in terms of application, and it also has a good head start in terms of its development. Plus, it is really inexpensive currently. We have done a great many studies on new cryptocurrencies that we hoped would survive and thrive in the future, and in generally we have found that most of them do not do well in the long run. So far, in our research, those currencies that do survive and thrive seem to be currencies that satisfy a particular need that is well targeted. Our CICO-1, CICO-2, and CICO-3 currencies appear to be such currencies. We are now going to add CICO-4 to that list of cryptocurrencies that we think will do well in the future. CICO stands for Contemporary Initial Coin Offerings. Now, some cryptocurrencies that we study do not have initial coin offerings, but we still group them together in our CICO forecast if they are new. Again, the purpose of our CICO forecast is to attempt to use remote viewing in the context of our economic forecasting methods to determine the likelihood that a cryptocurrency will survive and thrive into the future. We are trying to focus on cryptocurrencies where their initial cost per coin is generally small and the potential for growth is significant. We offer our CICO forecast free to the public to watch as videos on YouTube, but the real name of the currency in the forecast has been changed so that the name referenced in the video is fictional. Potential investors can watch the forecast to see if they want to purchase the actual identity of the currency during the forecast period. At the end of the 5-year forecast period, we will release the real names of the currencies to the general public so that everyone can evaluate our results. While we have begun our CICO forecast by publishing results for coins for which we obtain positive results, we now intend to publish a wider range of forecasts. We have moved to something that is more like a subscription model where those people who purchase one of our CICO forecast identities also get a year of other CICO identities free of additional charge. This allows us to share our results that are not good, which theoretically allows people to dump currencies from their portfolios that look like they will not survive. But again, in our research, some currencies did come back with very strong and positive results. CICO-4 is one of those currencies for which we have obtained very positive results. For these CICO studies, we normally probe for adoption, and that is whether a significant number of people and institutions start to use the currency. The theory is that if the currency survives and people use the currency, then the price of the currency will increase over time, and that would make it a good investment. So let me outline what we did for this study for CICO-4. This experimental design has 2 parts for the target, which is what the viewers are supposed to perceive. Now, the first part is known now, and that is a base surface that has unique topographical elements. The second part of the target is made up of additional elements that are added to the target after the end of the forecast period using CGI software. Now, we have a video on our website on the Farsight forecasting method that was used for this study, and that video describes how this all works. All the viewers described the currently verifiable elements of the base surface for the target well for this study, which in this case is an image of some mountainous terrain in Death Valley. Moreover, all of the viewers had similar or corresponding numbers of elements added to that base surface, and those results tell us how the currency will perform over the forecast period according to the rules of our experimental design. There are no dissenting results among the 3 remote viewers employed in this investigation. In our studies, there are a possibility of up to 11 elements that can be placed in a target using CGI software 5 years in the future. And our remote viewers are describing what the target looks like in 5 years after it is assembled using CGI software. The rules of how those elements are employed in the target creation process exist now, and those rules are tied to how the currency performs during the forecast period. So when our viewers described what the target looks like in the future, we know how the currency performs. For CICO-4, our 3 remote viewers described the future target as having 4, 6, and 7 additional elements out of 11 possible elements that are added to the base target. Now this is a very healthy number of added elements. Normally targets which have 3 to 4 added elements are good indicators of positive growth, so 4 to 7 elements is quite strong. Finally, we utilized a modified and aggregated version of temperature probe analysis for this CICO. Temperature probe analysis is normally used to obtain direction indicators for specific timelines, such as week to week, month to month, or year to year. The aggregation method helps to centralize the timeline measurements so that we have one measure for the entire forecast period rather than week to week or year to year and so on. This tends to increase the accuracy of the temperature probe analysis, and it allows for us to obtain an independent measure for the aggregate CICO change. We can then compare this with the measure obtained using complexity analysis. For CICO-4, the aggregated temperature probe analysis matches the complexity analysis. More specifically, there are 24 measures for temperature that were mapped to changes in adoption for this currency. Of the 24 measures for temperature, 17 are positive and only 7 are negative. And if you weigh these measures by the actual perceived temperatures, then the numbers are 40 positive and 11 negative, or nearly 4 to 1 ratio. Thus, the aggregated temperature probe analysis corresponds with the complexity analysis to indicate that this CICO does find a significant user base with a marked rise in adoption over the next 5 years. Finally, we analyze the types of activity that the viewers describe for our CICO targets. The types of activity have positive or negative meanings, and they also indicate the strength and rapidness of movements involved with the currency. In all of our sessions for this CICO, there were no negative indicators with activity, and most activity was minimal. The absence of negative or destructive activity is a good sign. Now, for a numerical comparison with respect to our other CICO projects, if we average the number of elements perceived by each viewer and divide that by the total possible elements for a target, we get the proportion of total possible elements that a viewer perceives. Then, we can average that proportion across all viewers to get an overall index for the currency that ranges from 0 to 1. An index number of 1 would mean that the viewers perceived every possible element that could be used in a forecast, and that means a currency would be very popular and be adopted by an exceptionally large community. An index number of 0 would mean the opposite, which is that viewers perceived no additional elements over and above the base surface, which would mean that the currency would be expected to perform badly in terms of adoption. For our CICO-1 currency, that index number is 0.66. For our CICO-2 currency, the index number is 0.725. For our CICO-3 currency, the index number is 0.575. And now for our CICO-4 currency, the index number is 0.567, which is very much within the range of the index numbers for the other CICOs. So our remote viewing results are strong for the CICO-4 currency. This does not guarantee that the currency will perform well over the next 5 years, but given that we now have multiple remote viewing sessions done by very experienced remote viewers that indicate that the currency's future performance is strong, this suggests that the future timelines for this currency are in general very positive. One last point. This currency is currently very inexpensive. My own thought is that it is best to keep the currency for the full forecast period, or at least until one sees a substantial return in one's investment. This is not day trading where you buy in the morning and sell in the afternoon, and the exact timing of the upward and downward movements needs to be known down to the hour or minute. Remind yourself that this is a 5-year forecast. And remember our disclaimer. No one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor. We are practitioners in remote viewing, and we are using remote viewing to explore new realms, including financial forecasts. So anything that anyone at Farsight does that relates to using remote viewing to predict financial or economic outcomes of any type, including the selling prices of cryptocurrencies, stocks, commodities, or anything else, is done for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everyone doing investments is doing so at their own risk. Nonetheless, these efforts are truly interesting on a grand scale, and I personally believe that after we do this for a while, it will be hard for anyone to ignore the reality of remote viewing. As I have said in the past, may you follow your own intuitions, make wise investment decisions, and become rich. Thank you for supporting our efforts at Farsight. Together, we will change the world for the better. I am Courtney Brown, Director of Farsight.